Welcome to Construction Tutor. You know that feeling when you're staring at a mountain of project plans, wondering where to even begin? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving deep into a super critical process, the Contractor's Review.
So in this explainer, which is all about Module 2, we're going to cover the essential responsibilities that, honestly, protect you contractually. We'll also pinpoint the key things you've got to review before you even think about breaking ground. Then, we'll get into the unique rules for design-built projects and wrap it all up by looking at some real-world examples to see how this all plays out.
Okay, let's jump right in. The whole idea of the Contractor's Review really hinges on one fundamental rule. And I want to be super clear here. This isn't just a friendly suggestion. It's a legal must-do. Now, this clause, it has some serious teeth. It's a Federal Acquisition Regulation, or FAR, and what that really means is that reviewing all the plans and specs isn't just, good practice, it's written into your contract. It's a mandate. Getting this right at the very beginning is what saves you from massive headaches and costly delays down the road. Your first job is to understand, to question, and to clarify. And when you do ask those questions, you've got to use the right tool for the job. Think of it like this. An RFI, a request for information, is you basically saying, hey, what does this part of the contract actually mean? You're asking for clarification. But an RFB, a request for variance, is you asking, can we do this a different way? You're asking to change something. Mixing these two up can cause some major problems, so knowing the difference is absolutely fundamental. So, we've established you have to review the plans. But what exactly are you looking for? Let's break down that pre-construction checklist.
Okay, this checklist, this is your treasure map for finding problems before they cost you serious time and money. You're basically a detective. You're looking for things like, are the utility lines actually where the plans say they are? Is there physically enough room for someone to get in and service that big piece of equipment? And, a huge one, does the structural plan completely clash with where the HVAC ducts are supposed to go? Catching these issues early is what separates a smooth project from a nightmare.
All right, now let's talk about design-build contracts, because this is where things get really interesting. In this model, the contractor's role gets way bigger, and, well, the rules of the game totally change.
So, in a traditional contract, the government just hands you the design. But in design-build, the contractor is actually responsible for the design itself. That's where this key player, the DQCM, comes in. This person is your internal expert, your design watchdog, making sure the quality is top-notch before anything gets built. They're a really important role, reporting to the site manager but totally separate from the day-to-day quality control manager. This plan, the DQCP, is your absolute roadmap for managing design quality. And it's not some document you just create and file away. It's a living, breathing management tool. It demands independent reviews, a dedicated manager, and this is crucial. It has to be accepted by the government before a single line of design work can even begin.
You know, finding a problem is one thing, but how you communicate it, that's a whole other ballgame. How you ask the question is often just as important as the question itself.
Following these 5 steps can turn a simple question into a powerful project management tool. It proves you've done your homework, you've talked to your team, and you're not just, tossing a problem over the fence. You're presenting a clear issue with a suggested fix, which makes it so much easier for the government to give you a quick and helpful answer. Now, back to design-build for a second. In that world, you don't always have to run straight to the government. The DVCR is basically your internal RFI. It's the formal way for your construction folks to ask your design folks, hey, what exactly did you mean by this? The DQCM handles it to sort things out internally first. It just keeps the whole process way cleaner and more efficient.
All right, theory's great, but let's put it into practice. It's time to check our knowledge by tackling some of the questions you'd find in Exercise 2 from the module.
First one up, can you think of some situations where the contractor is actually on the hook for providing parts of the design, even in a more traditional contract?
Yep, these are all perfect examples. Things like fire alarm systems or the nitty-gritty details for structural steel. Those are often designed by the contractor or one of their specialty subs. This is exactly why your review and coordination are so vital, to make sure these extensions fit seamlessly into the government's bigger picture.
Okay, this next one really hits on the heart of smart communication in a design-build project. Knowing which road to take here is absolutely crucial. So here's the key takeaway, the simple rule of thumb. Always start internally. If you've got a question about your own team's design, you use a DVCR.
It's an internal question. It's only when the answer to that DVCR reveals that you truly need input from the government that you then escalate it to an official RFI. Internal first, external second. Always.
And let's recap this one more time, just because it is so incredibly important. What makes an RFI truly effective?
Exactly. It's that 5-step recipe we talked about. Review, coordinate, state the problem clearly, suggest a solution, and give them a time frame. An RFI like that just screams professionalism. It shows you're a partner trying to solve problems, not just point them out.
Okay, theory's done. Now let's get into the trenches. Nothing teaches better than seeing this stuff in the wild. So let's analyze a couple of real RFIs and see what works and what really doesn't.
So, for this first one, picture this. The contractor found a major conflict. The sprinkler design showed pipe hangers attached to bar joist, but the architectural drawing showed that exact same spot was going to be covered up by drywall. Whoops.
And this is a textbook example of a perfect Category A RFI. The contractor didn't just point out the problem. They clearly stated the conflict, they referenced the specific drawings, they described how they plan to fix it, and then they asked for a simple confirmation. It's proactive, professional, and detailed. Just beautiful.
Okay, now for the other side of the coin. In this second RFI, the prime contractor literally just attached an email from their sub and forwarded it on. There's no context, no review, no coordination, nothing.
And this is a classic, Category C mistake. As the prime contractor, it's your job to manage your subs and to own the communication with the government. Just forwarding a question is not only unprofessional, it's lazy and inefficient. You have to review it, coordinate it, and formally ask the question yourself. You can't just pass the buck.
So what's the big takeaway here? After all this, what does it all boil down to? It's pretty simple, really. A successful project is built on two things: a diligent, thorough review and crystal clear professional communication. These aren't just steps in a process. They are the absolute foundation of everything we do.
And that's our deep dive into the Contractor's Review. I'll leave you with this question to think about. What's the biggest communication breakdown you've ever seen on a project? If you found this explainer helpful, do us a huge favor and hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe to Construction Tutor for more content designed to help you succeed. Thanks for watching.